So as you can see, weather is wet and, well, it's going to be wet and windy again. It's been wet and windy for days, and I hope you can see this. Kiwis, most of the leaves have gone, and when we get, no, that's a water butt, you want to see the kiwis. When we get some decent weather, we've got some kiwi harvesting to do, but I'm going to wait. I'm hoping for a nice day. And I've been thinking about Christmas, but I'm going to go back in now and talk about that. I've been preparing dinner. I've been doing a tray of mixed veg, celeriac, butternut squash, onions, garlic and potatoes with some rosemary and thyme. And thinking about people preparing for Christmas, and thinking about those that see the Christmas hype on the television, the adverts that have already been running probably for 6 weeks, of tables laden with food, laden with far too much food, and lots of lovely, happy families sitting around the table, getting ready to eat the food and having a great time at Christmas. And I think it feeds, and most of us know that it feeds some idyllic idea that Christmas is great, and Christmas is great fun for everybody, and there's much happiness, and I think for some families that's true. I've been watching, well, you know, I watch YouTube, and I've been watching a young Italian couple who I've only just come across in the last 3 days, who've had quite some adventurous times. And I saw them first with their family, revealing the gender of their baby to their family, and it was really lovely to see such close, happy, supportive, and supportive families, and seeing that they'd obviously had a very lovely experience of childhood. There's a disclaimer to that, because actually the Sarah, the female, has had an eating disorder from the age of, I think she was 11 to late teens, and if you know, most often if you've had an eating disorder, then there's something gone on as you were growing up that's created the need to have the control over your eating. Anyway, on the outside, on the surface, and in the video that I saw, you know, it looked lovely. They have a lovely life. They seem very happy together, and I'm really pleased about that. And then you have Stephanie decorating and the chateau and doing the advent calendar. And I have to say, as I'm not religious, I've watched them build the nativity scene, and I watched them last night doing the kitchen, and for the first time found it all rather childish, and thinking about, I don't know what the words are. It's like, you know, they're having a lovely time and it's great and it's entertaining for us and entertaining for them. And I'm thinking about all those people that don't have any of that, and those children that are seeing the adverts on the television and seeing how Christmas is meant to be. Like, this is how Christmas is meant to be, and my Christmas isn't like that. And why isn't my Christmas like that? You know, and wishing and maybe fantasizing that one day they'll have a Christmas like that. And it's highly unlikely they'll ever have a Christmas like that, because Christmas isn't like that for everybody. And for those people that have a lovely, happy family time, I wish you all the best. But there are some children and some adults who don't have that, families who won't have that, people that have very little, and of course over the last few weeks have lost more money because of the cuts to universal credit, and they're not going to have that sort of Christmas, and there will be some kids that don't even have Christmas, and that's really sad. And I think I I can't get caught up in the whole hype for Christmas, and that feels really mean. And I did do Christmas as a child. I remember having Christmas stocking and the excitement of opening, emptying our stockings and seeing what we got in there, and it wasn't loads in there, but it was. I remember it. I'd get a little. At the bottom of the stocking was a clementine or tangerine. They were back then. Some nuts, and what else did I have in there? Often had a plastic fake watch. It wasn't even a fake as you would know nowadays. The hands didn't move. It was just a plastic watch, or a torch, or there would be some chocolate in there. There would be one of those little. I mean, I'm talking back to the very early '60s. It was a little bar for threepence of Cadbury's Dairy Milk. I still love Cadbury's Dairy Milk, but there was a little bar, foil wrapped bar of Cadbury's Dairy Milk. So, I have good memories of that, and I don't recall Christmas being difficult or uncomfortable. It wasn't massive though. It wasn't a massive Christmas. It was quite minimal. I can remember Mum always saying, that they relied on relatives to, who were going to send presents as well. But you'd get something that an uncle or aunt had bought you that was like a little one of those little wooden French knitting dolls, or some sort of little game in a box. But that was Christmas back in the early '60s, and that was our Christmas. And most years on Boxing Day we would end up going and visiting cousins, and I had a great time with our cousins. So my Christmases were not massive, but at the same time they weren't awful. But I still feel for these children, mainly because children don't understand. Children can make comparisons. Children, hear about at school what their friends are doing, and you wonder why that's not happening for them, and there'll be the other children who, this is a time of year when people are drinking, and mum and dad might be drinking when maybe they aren't normally, or maybe they're not drinking as much as they're drinking at Christmas, and there's a threat to the children. The children are vulnerable. There's violence. There's abuse, and you've got the helplines like NSPC, the NSPCC, and you've got Childline, and they talk about their calls go up obviously around Christmas, and I think that with lockdown last year their calls went up. So they're much more vulnerable around that time, because people are not going out to work and they're not going to school. They're stuck at home with maybe, parents that they would rather being away from. So there's that to think about. And I think it's really important to try and keep it in perspective. And that's what I do. And it feels like a bit like bar humbug, I think. And I can't, I'm going to say I can't help it. I could help it. I could ignore it, and just get all caught up in the hype. But I don't think I can. I know people say, well, there's no such word as can't, but I don't think I can get caught up in the hype, because I won't forget that it's not all a bed of roses for people. And it's important to remember that not everybody's having that sort of Christmas, and which is why I'm quite happy to wait until a week before to start decorating. Mark does the decorating, and we'll just have very minimal stuff up just to sort of mark that it's Christmas. And I'll do nice food, but then I try and do nice food most days anyway. And it's just, for me, it's just a roast dinner. It's not, it doesn't have to be. The only thing I have to make is chestnut stuffing, because Mark likes turkey and chestnut stuffing sandwiches in the evening. By the time the evening comes, I haven't got room for sandwiches, but he has. So I'll make some some chestnut stuffing, and we'll watch nice stuff on the telly, and we'll probably have a drink or two. I'm not really bothered about alcohol. So like I said a few weeks back, I forgot to buy wine for when Joe and Jerome were here. I bought some nice wine actually the following week, because then I started to think, I fancy some red wine. And it was a Merlot, and it was called La Bastide. Oh God, it was really lovely. And I'm not really interested in drinking, and I actually made sure I got my share of the bottle, which is unusual. I normally have a glass and then Mark finishes it, and then a week later I bought another bottle. So I have to watch that, because I don't want to be drinking really. That is something I don't really like. I don't like being around. I discovered I don't like being around people who are drunk. Had some experiences with my mother, which were unpleasant, and I learnt that actually avoiding people that have been drinking is better for me than being with them and coping with it, because it hadn't realised quite how much I was having to adapt to cope with it. There's a story, a little anecdote from when Mark and I first got together finally after 4 years, and we were going to have our first Christmas together, which was Christmas 2020, no, not 20, yeah, 2000, Christmas 2001. And we were shopping in Sainsbury's for Christmas things, and he had a trolley, and he had got some crates of beer, the little cardboard crates with little bottles of beer in, and he'd probably got some spirits in there, and I didn't have any. I don't remember what was going on for me, but he could see there was something going on for me. I'd certainly gone quiet, and he looked at me and said, "What's going on? Are you all right?" And I sort of said, pointed to the trolley, which was full of alcohol, and he went, "I'm not going to drink it all at once," and that broke the spell. It was like I had obviously got into a panic about, oh my God, how much alcohol was going to be drunk over a short period of time. I couldn't have voiced any of that, because what happens when that sort of thing happens is you go back into a much earlier age where you don't actually have, it's sort of a non-verbal reaction. I had something similar happened to me when we, early on when we were first in France, and we went out with friends to, they don't have pubs in France. They call them pubs sometimes, to try and be like a pub in England. But there was a place anyway nearby called the Why Not, and it was sort of made up to look like a pub. And we went there. We went there with Cleo and her husband and a couple of other friends, and there was a big group of us that went there. And when we walked in, there was a guy at the bar with his trousers around his ankles, really, really pissed. And I felt really sick, and apparently I went really pale, and I had to leave, go outside and leave the pub, and get myself sorted before we could go back in again. And again, it's a visceral thing that goes on for me, and I think that and after a year or so, those sort of things I can cope with now. And I found ways that I'm not around people that are drinking, and I avoid being around people that have been drinking. So I'm imagining that maybe what keeps my Christmas low key is that there would have been alcohol at Christmas. Yeah, there would have been alcohol. I think when we visited the cousins on Boxing Day, my uncle was definitely a drinker. Mum, they both, drinking. They call it Scotch, and I won't call whiskey Scotch because it reminds me of how they refer to it, and so I have issues around that. So that's probably what tempers my Christmas. So yeah, I just wanted to say, not everybody's having. I'll have a great Christmas because my life is how I want it to be now. So Christmas will be how we want it. It will be great. We'll enjoy it. But I want to think about those people whose Christmases won't be magical, and I think that's really important. So if this resonates for you at all, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say in your comments. Um, and to hear what you think about what I've talked about today. So have a good weekend, and I'm going to have a look and see how my tray of roast vegetables are going, because I'm hungry, because we don't eat, and we've not eaten since, I say we don't eat, I look like I don't eat, don't I? But we haven't had anything since around 8 o'clock last night, so it's now 11 o'clock in the morning. So it's, what's that? It's about 16 hours at midday. So we have that. So we do 8-16 eating, 16-8, intermittent fasting it's called. And I'm sure that it has worked for me. If I hadn't have been taking steroids, it would have been much better, but there you go. Anyway, have a good weekend and see you next time.